Hi, fellow tea lovers. Settle in, because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across air. Earlier, when we were talking about algorithms and the way you find the best things for sale, it reminded me of this book I read called Feed.
I remember when that came out. I didn't read that one. I see it as a bookseller.
Yeah, and it had like the back of like a shaved or bald head on it. So that book was it was set in the future where most people, as soon as they were born, had basically a computer injected into their brain. Ugh. Yeah. And so at school, one of the things they learned was how to find the best deals on something.
Through their chip.
Because they had everything in their mind all the time. So anything they thought of, their AI thing would be like, hey, because you thought about this or looked it up, I've set some reminders and I found that this place has the best price right now. And if you use this coupon code, you can get more free or whatever.
That's a Futurama episode. Like when they're
really?
implanting the dreams about the Lightspeed briefs into Fry's head. And he wakes up and he's like, I gotta buy underwear!
That's right. That's right. So there's a lot more to that book than that. But that part is what reminded me of our conversation because I use, and I'm not going to name and shame or name and share, but I use an internet service that's free that keeps a lot of my things organized. And one of the things I have it do for me under a separate profile is all of the things I want to buy. I just search it a few times and then I have parameters set up to where I'll start getting coupons. And you don't even need those parameters anymore. You just need to make sure the spam filter's off in your email. That's all it is. Because you go to their websites, put in what you're looking for, you put it in your basket, you create an account with your alter self.
Your shopping ego.
Yeah, your shopping ego. And then you get coupons. And then you'll be like, oh, this is definitely a great price.
See, and the result of that is super useful. It's a thing that I'm a little bit jealous of. I'm more of a Battlestar philosophy kind of person when it comes to technology. Like, you don't network if you don't have to. But, the result is not as immediately satisfying. Like, I totally get why it's fun.
So I know it's not really free because I'm giving this overall group that I use their email and such for my information. And at the moment, I'm like, I know my information is being totally harvested.
You're trading your data. That's a thing.
But I'm at the point where I don't really know what the data will be used for, but I have seen the Black Mirror episodes about it.
Well, it's like the ancestry things. I know I sounded unreasonable when those came out because it felt too uncontrolled. And really, the control that you have over that is based on somebody's promise that they have control over it.
Yes.
And that's real thin. And you're already seeing like weird things growing up out of that. And again, I'm not saying don't use these things, but just do understand that there are far-reaching and sometimes medium to near-reaching consequences that just aren't immediately obvious.
Did you see that the one you always talk about, the server, went down on Friday?
Yes.
So I have like 8,000 jobs. One of my things I do, I got up at like 6, I think, to get some work done on that. And I can't log into anything. I can't even connect to the internet in my house. And I'm like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going on. So I like yell at the Alexa to see if it's alive. Yeah, it's working just fine. My phone's connected to the internet. What's happening? And I open up the chat and other people are like, everything's down. We can't log into anything. Everything's down. No data entry today. And I'm like, what's happening? And then I saw CloudStrike.
CloudStrike.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I've been talking about is like the system is so much more rickety than we want to think that it is. But all it took was one bad update. Like you have one of those at home on your home computer and yeah, you may lose your whole computer, but it's a single thing that is very rarely propping up other things. But all it takes is for that exact experience to happen to the wrong person in the wrong office for like a third of systems to be down.
Right. One of my siblings works at, some very secure place. And when they got to work, nothing's working, nothing's going on. They have to go back to the outside part and like check their phones and they see that this is happening. So they just go back in, put everything in safe mode, take out the update, poof, everything's running again like magic. And I'm like, thank you for telling me that, sibling, but no one else knows how to do that.
Right, that's actually kind of niche information. We use so many systems that we really don't understand the working parts of. And that's not a pejorative, that's how a lot of technology works, but there are effects of it. And there's secondary effects. Like, I work in a job that does not use CloudStrike, but I work with people in large volume that were badly affected.
Yeah.
And it has such a trickle effect. Even if you're not directly involved with it, it's going to change how your day is going to go, at the very least.
Right. When I started my regular job, when I started working at that at 8, everything there seemed fine. So that was awesome. But a little confusing because Microsoft was like, oh no, we're down. And I'm getting emails. I'm a busy lady today.
Right, you hear Microsoft and go, oh no, and you check it, and they're like, okay, well, I guess
what's that mine? Okay, but who do you think's getting fired? Here's your choices. The CEO or the person whose server in the basement bumped things up for a minute. I don't know who they are, but that person, Greg, with his storage site, he's like, well, it only stays there for 3 seconds. It's fine. Passing through Greg's server.
Poor little Jimmy Bob that hit enter is absolutely the one getting canned.
Right? But do you think the CEO's going or the middle management?
No, absolutely not the CEO. The CEO is going to somehow spin it into some sort of act of Congress that lets them have more money because they're in crisis.
Ooh. I just could not stop thinking about it. But it's been a few days since that happened. There are still people stuck in airports.
Yeah, because of that trickle-down effect, because when you have so many systems that are held together with paper clips and gum, that one thing goes down, trickles down to the next thing, trickles down to the next thing. The thing that went down originally also has priority on troubleshooting.
Right.
They're trying to fix that the fastest, but like the tertiary effect of the guy that's sleeping on the airport floor because he just happened to get the bad luck of all the things that could have happened in that situation, and they're still trying to fix that, takes way longer.
Dude. And, think about, like, if you're stuck in the airport and you've got your laptop with you. So, like, I could work from the airport. You're on your way home from vacation. Mm-hmm. Day 1, you're stuck there. You're like, if I'm not home by tonight, what am I going to do about work tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Like, I could do my work from the airport, but after sleeping on the floor there for 4 days, it wouldn't be quality work. I think I'm really lucky, though. My boss and my big boss, they're so cool. They would be like, hey, we're going to help you out. Just, do what you can.
Right. They'd be booking you a Greyhound.
And that would be out of the kindness of their heart. Mm-hmm. Because I would literally never ride a bus anywhere again long distance.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that part of my life is also over. I definitely did it for a long time, but I just don't.
I did it once and was like, no.
Oh, yeah. No, I've definitely had a lot of interesting experiences that in retrospect I wouldn't trade, but were not fun at the time.
But that's not what I wanted to know about all that. What I was thinking was, what do you think is the worst possible outcome? Like, what's in your opinion? And it doesn't have to be serious. If you want to make it funny, that's fine with me. What's the worst possible outcome of selling all our data?
There's a lot of real life answers to that, but in terms of thinking out far enough and like crazy enough, I think probably the worst possible outcome is giving somebody the opportunity to duplicate you. Did you see the movie Paradise Hills? It's amazing. So. It's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's an imagining where high society girls are taken out of their homes and environments and taken to this island that is on the surface a very luxurious like spa hotel, but it's rehab for ladies that can't deal with their supposedly natural place in their society. Their families have them shipped off to become more acceptable. It actually has Awkwafina in it. She plays a really great character.
Is this new?
2019.
Okay, I feel like I recently saw a trailer for that. Okay.
Yeah. My point here actually contains a spoiler, which I now apologize for because you haven't seen it. This is a spoiler, but the rehabilitation that they're going through turns out to just be an opportunity to observe them enough to create a copy that is acceptable to send home to their families.
Dude.
And I just think about that a lot. No, it's fantasy, but it starts with giving somebody the tools that they need to not really need you.
All right.
I derailed hard. I apologize.
No, that's not a derailing because today's episode's a little different. So I wasn't 100% prepared to record today.
Unfortunately, I have had a major theft of my back molar. I hope you can't hear it, but I will call a spade and just say that oral surgery is not as blasé as I was led to believe.
She was really blasé and...
I drove myself. I drove myself home.
I was super wondering about that. I should
actually
have asked.
Didn't tell anybody that I was driving myself until it was over because I knew it was going to be frowned on. But it was fine. It's been a weird couple of weeks, and we roll.
Okay. We roll. So, Eminem has a new album out. I listened to it a few times now. It's called The Death of Slim Shady, coup de grace. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who aren't cultured, what does coup de grace mean?
Coup de grace is a term for a finishing move. It's the thing that you can't ever come back from.
Okay. Yeah. It's one of those things. I know I've read it before. Have I ever stopped and thought about the definition? I don't know.
Well, it's like crossing the Rubicon. That's why I think those cupcakes are so funny. And nobody else gets the joke. You're making the face that everyone makes. But
what's a cupcake joke? There's
a brand of cupcakes that Whole Foods and a couple of other spots carry Rubicon. They're delicious, but every time I get them, I laugh so hard and tell anybody that will listen, well, there's no going back now, because crossing the Rubicon, it refers to, a moment where a general decided to go across the Rubicon, which was a dividing river that was considered the precincts of Rome, the city itself. Once you cross that river, you are invading Rome. And so in crossing the Rubicon, he had made a decision that he could never go back on. He had to just push forward. And so it becomes a shorthand for you've done a thing that you can't come back from. Which just makes it a weird cupcake.
From this now, boys.
Right, thank you. And so it just makes it a weird cupcake brand. And every time. But that's why it's more the same thing.
Okay,
yeah.
I gotcha. No, I am glad for that segue. So, before I talk about Eminem's album, because you haven't listened to it, have you?
I've not.
Do you listen to Eminem?
I have in the past, nostalgia high school vibes.
Yeah.
I hadn't honestly been paying much attention in recent memory.
Okay. So I still listen to Eminem a lot, and I really love 8 Mile still.
It's a very solid movie. Love you, Brittany Murphy, so very much.
Yeah, I miss her. But I really like Eminem, and I liked a lot of the stuff he's put out in his past few albums, even though a lot of them weren't as successful as his first ones. The first Eminem CD that I knew about was actually his second release, which was the Slim Shady LP. Mm-hmm. And that came out February 1999, and I was in college when that came out. And I loved it. My friends loved it. And I lived in a really small town, y'all, deep south, and everybody really, really liked that. And then I remember waiting for his second album to come out, which was in 2000, the Marshall Mathers LP. I don't think I was working right then, and I had a change jar on my dresser that said the Marshall Mathers LP. But, he was rude. He made fun of everyone. He was showing the white people version of Bad Circumstance, airing his dirty laundry with his mom. I feel like that wasn't a thing in rap and hip hop. Maybe it was. I can't speak to that forever.
Right.
But with your mom?
Mm-hmm. No, the mom is the sacred archetype in most music traditions.
Not for him.
Yeah.
And so he was so outrageous. Remember when Marilyn Manson first came out? Mm-hmm. Pop Marilyn? Well, that it was pop Marilyn Manson. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was. He was very shocking.
Yeah.
I got over him pretty quickly, but not Eminem.
I was just watching a thing the other day about the odd upcoming of the Bloodhound Gang. They had a couple of hits that were just absolutely earworms that still exist.
Yes.
They kind of occupied that shock value for entertainment space that was going on in the late 90s perfectly, but probably wouldn't have succeeded anywhere before or since. And I think Eminem and Marilyn Manson and all of those acts existed in that same shock space.
Yes.
Whoever thinks of it first gets to try it once.
I love that you put it that way, because when I listen to Eminem now, his older music, under the purview of being a middle-aged woman, a mother, and I'm like, oh man, I still love this music. We're not canceling him. There's just no way you could get away with that now.
Yeah, no, we're coming up on that reckoning over and over and over and over and over again. We're just paying more attention to it now. The idea of separating the art from the artist, and whether you should, and what contexts you can, and I don't think anybody has a solid answer for themselves there.
No, it's
just uncomfortable. It's constantly uncomfortable. Stop diddling people you shouldn't.
For sure. So, old Eminem, I still like his albums. I still think he's great. But in listening to his new album, he says it's a concept album to listen to from beginning to end. Do you remember back when albums, a lot of them would have like intro, outro, skit, reprise,
You're
whatever.
supposed to be creating a narrative on an album for a really long chunk of recording history. That was the format.
Right. With a lot of hip-hop albums that I had in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I would listen to them once and then I'd be like, and then I would move on. But here we are with this album. I'm trying to give it the whole thing a listen. So I'm going to play part of a song for her. We obviously have to cut that part out because we don't have money.
Copyright fights are not something we're picking.
So that song is called Trouble. It is basically like Slim Shady and Marshall Mathers battling it out, okay? So at the end of it, he kills Slim Shady. So the thing is, when I listen to Slim Shady rapping new music right now, I'm all, is that really necessary?
It isn't the same, but when you're listening to the old stuff that you have those memory connections with, you want to give those concepts a pass, even though you probably didn't agree with it then, don't agree with it now. But the music itself created a happy spot and still does. You know, it still hits those neurons.
There's some good songs on the album. I like them a lot. But I don't know. I'm going to listen to it a few dozen more times before I decide.
It's a little bit how I felt about Extraordinary Machine when Fiona Apple brought her second album out. I adore it for a lot of reasons. I think it is really meant to be narrative. I can also see why it was less of a commercial success. Especially when it came out, I was a music student. I was in music theory classes. It blew my mind from a technical standpoint. And from an emotional standpoint, for me, because I was already invested in the way she wrote, it was also very emotionally powerful. But it's not really as publicly accessible as her studio-produced, like, first things. She'll still always be my hero for deciding to wait 15 years to bring out an album on her terms.
What genre do you feel like Fiona Apple falls in?
Oh, that's rough. I mean, technically, I would have said, like, folk alternative back in the day, but I don't think that Extraordinary Machine can really be classified the same way. I don't even know where I would place that. World music inspired, with jazz also. Okay. Genre is a really hard thing to pin down, even when Extraordinary Machine came out in 2005.
So the dictionary, just good old Oxford Dictionary, defines genre as a category of artistic composition, as in music or literature, characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter. Which, that is an enormous range.
Of course, I mean, it's just a giant umbrella. And to be honest, if you haven't explained the parameters of the genre that you're trying to categorize something in, it's meaningless.
Yeah. We've had this conversation before, me and you and your partner, about genres, because I'm always like wondering, what band right now would you put in rock? Like just rock. The Beatles, but
Maybe,
also Elvis
if you're
Presley.
defining it that way, yeah.
And you could also say, like the Rolling Stones.
And if you're going to add that portion of the range, then you have to add a whole bunch of other bands.
Leonard Skinner.
Right. But then, are you leaning into classic rock there?
Because Dolly Parton? I don't know.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. The parameters are not defined.
Yeah, because when I got here, that's what you guys were talking about, that Dolly Parton was like, why would you nominate me for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Thank you, but question mark?
Right. I love her. She's so cute.
Oh, yes.
She's so cute. So, I want to play you another snip of a song, and it's not by Eminem, but it links back to Eminem. So I'm going to tell you guys on the pod after I play it for her, and I'm going to have her guess what genre it is, okay? What genres, as many as you like, would you place that in?
Definitely country. I think that it's poppy country, but I think that's really normal now. Yeah, I would have said solidly country on that one.
Okay. I'm so impressed because I heard this singer because one of the last songs on the Death of Slim Shady album is Eminem and this guy who is Jelly Roll.
Oh my gosh, so interesting.
Right. So I did not play her the song that's with Eminem. I played her I Am Not Okay. Because yeah, it does have a very like pop gospel country
soul,
Chris Daughtry thing going on.
And it's so interesting because I just encountered, which I don't think is actually very new, the Rag and Bone Man he was the one that did Only Human. He just did a collaboration with High Contrast, who is just this amazing drum and bass artist.
Fun.
And I never would have placed those two together. It was very well done.
I really enjoyed that. Do you remember in like same time frame, late 90s, early 2000s, the like rap rock crossovers, like Limp Bizkit and whoever, I don't know.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of hip hop influence going into heavy metal. But that was what my partner was kind of talking about when we were getting ready for this episode, was that the split with heavy metal is into so many tiny little splinter chunkets that feel very strongly about their classification. Death metal, black metal. But that's its own splintered off sectional movement that isn't really even necessarily related to rock in the same way that it started, because they started in the same pool and not even in the same ocean anymore.
Right. And I think so many artists nowadays are like that. Hearing that song with Eminem is what made me think of it. Also, I saw something, just a headline that said, Jelly Roll's been brought to tears over Eminem sampling his song. And I was like, oh, he's sampling it? Because I thought they were singing it together.
Oh, that's some good sound engineering.
Whoops, my bad. So, yeah, that was interesting because do you know anything about Jelly Roll?
At all, no.
Have you heard the name?
I've not.
This is Jelly Roll.
He's kind of got a Post Malone vibe.
Yep, I can see that with the tattoos and whatnot. I don't know, like, a lot about Jelly Roll. I know that he doesn't have, like, the typical country singer look. Like you said, he looks like Post Malone. He looks cool, you know? Like, look at that guy. Yeah. And I like that he sounds very country music. That's what he sounds like. But he doesn't look very country music. And I always find that interesting.
Surprising is nice.
Right. Apparently, before he got famous, Back was going to name one of his tapes Whiskey, Weed, and Waffle House. But I know, dude. But Waffle House didn't like that, I guess.
I guess that's not, legal action. Not the most ideal PR campaign.
Are you serious? I feel like it's amazing.
In one direction, yes. You're definitely going to get a lot more customers from one side, but from the family end, you're going to lose a lot. So I guess, make that decision.
Don't you think they come in at different times, though? The family end comes in during the day.
I don't know. My roommate in college threw a plate of pancakes against the wall of a village inn at 2 p.m.
Why?
She didn't have enough butter.
Oh.
I was not present for this incident, but apparently she requested butter, and they were not very quick with their retrieval of the butter, and she was very drunk and threw her pancakes against the wall, like palmed them.
Whoa, that's not great.
She did go back and apologize, because she was a very nice person, but those things happen.
Okay, do we have Waffle Houses or Huddle House here? We have Waffle House, right? Yeah. Okay, where I went to high school and some in college, we had Huddle House, I believe. I think it's pretty much the exact same thing. Yeah. They probably even have the exact same menu. And I remember going there a lot late at night with my friend for, everybody except me getting sweet tea. I get regular tea.
Sweet tea is terrifying. I'm sorry.
Southerners, I apologize for her. I personally don't drink it, but I will not talk bad about it. Anyways, it's the same friend who I used to go there with. Her kid loves it. That's their favorite restaurant. I know. I just like this little elementary school kid being like, Huddle House is my favorite.
That's adorable.
Yeah, so I learned that about him, and then I don't know when he got super famous, but I did see that at the beginning of the year, he testified before Congress in support of anti-fentanyl legislation.
That's cool.
The quote I found from it says, when he was explaining his perspective as a former distributor of illegal drugs, Jelly Roll stated, I was part of the problem. I am here now standing as a man that wants to be part of the solution.
Yeah, that's putting that all out there, but honestly, those are the types of arguments that end up carrying much more weight.
Right?
The first thing people say back is, well, how would you know?
Oh my gosh, right? I think he's your age. I think he's like 40. And
I'm kidding.
That's younger than me.
I'm kidding. Still getting used to it, alright?
Oh,
the 40 panties are a little tight.
Okay. So he's like 40, but he got his GED in prison at age 23. So yeah, he seems to have a colorful background.
That's an upward arc.
Yeah. But back to genre. Post Malone, we were just talking about him. He's one of those cool genre semi-benders. I Googled musicians who transcend genre. I did not know anybody who was on that list. I should have been more specific.
You do have to set your parameters a little tighter because genre is just not a hard and fast concept. And to be honest, never really has been. Like we
No.
like to think that we've pinned it down, but we've not ever.
No, we haven't. It's because genres are infinite.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really name and categorize, especially right now because we are so much closer to the means of production and we can put things out that have less oversight and curation. I think it's a lot easier to bend genre, and it's almost like a badge of pride, like I'm mixing these things together.
Right.
But it's not just popular, it's easy.
Yeah.
Because if you have a studio involved and you have other people that are paying for the production, you have to make the case. But if you're sitting at home going, man, those two things sound awesome together, you can show the world.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good way to think about it. When I was Googling it, I guess I was thinking and not typing more in pop terms and not just pop top 40, but anything you pretty much hear on the radio kind of pop. But that's what I thought about Post Malone, because I think when he first became famous or more mainstream, he was marketed like hip hop a little bit.
That was always my impression. I have to admit I'm not super familiar.
And then it was like more pop, but Post Malone puts out a lot of albums. Like he's always working. Mm-hmm. And then we've had like some albums with like kind of almost like a rock theme. Now we have country. And like you said, I like the idea of musical mashup, and not because it's profitable to me or
because it's interesting. You do have a finite number of ways that you can put sounds together.
Yeah.
It's the way that you approach how you present it.
I was listening to one of NPR's many podcasts in the shower the other day, and it was a music podcast, and they were talking about Beck. Talk about genre busting. Right?
I love the Futurama episode with Beck. I thought he was just really great at laughing at himself, but those jokes were on point.
Wait, tell them to me. I don't really remember it.
They find him when Bender is in the hospital, and they tell him he's never going to move again, and Beck's in the bed next door getting a drugstore mannequin that he fished out of the dumpster, grafted onto his head cube thing, because he's a head in a jar, because it's 1,000 years later. Bender ends up going on tour with him, and they have all of these, like, hippies in the bus jokes. It's a really great episode, but I thought, like,
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
It takes an amazingly confident person to laugh at themselves that hard, and it was really well done.
Right. So, Beck, his huge song was Loser, when that came out, like 93, 94. Yep. And there was nothing like that being played on the radio.
Yeah. He just opened up a lot of doors for other people to create the trends of the kind of like mid to later 90s. I really do think he was really formative.
Yes, he was. Because right during and before Loser came out, we had a lot of like the grunge rock.
Yeah.
Grunge rock was huge still.
Not that I don't appreciate grunge rock.
Oh, I love grunge rock.
But that bright, like, I'm going to walk down the street and kind of do a little bit of dance sort of feel.
Yeah.
Was less prevalent.
Right. And everyone memorized every single word to that song.
Even though they make no sense.
None. Right. None. Somewhere I read that Beck wasn't really that into his song Loser. He thought it was kind of mediocre.
Oh, that's always the way.
Right.
Like that song made it popular? Oh, no.
That song is just so fun, so strange. It doesn't have a genre, it's just Beck.
Yeah. I think that's the goal. I am my own genre.
Another band that came up a lot was Ween. Did you ever listen to Ween?
I didn't back in the day, but then we ended up watching that South Park special at Red Rocks that they had up. 25th anniversary concert, but they brought out Ween and Les Claypool. They didn't tell Matt Stone that Ween was coming, and it was the cutest thing. He was like a little kid, like, all right, guys, and they're playing the drums with him. Like, it was very cute.
Ween had one album, The Mollusk, and I believe that came out in like 97 or 98. And I had that CD. It was probably like in a CD club at that time. Remember those?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was barely allowed because my older brother apparently got into some trouble with Columbia House. And so when those catalogs came...
didn't have at least one sibling that did. Yeah. But I loved the album, The Mollusk. But the only song I really remember off of it is the one, It's Gonna Be Alright. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I just...
But one of the other songs on that one was in the SpongeBob movie.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I listened to a little bit of Ween today, and I'm like, yeah, they have very different albums. I saw a few listings for Miley Cyrus, and look, I love me Miley Cyrus. I love Miley Cyrus, but she's always been pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty solidly. Yeah.
Well, and we have Hannah Montana.
Right.
Young, sweet, innocent pop. And, when my kid was young, I loved watching that show with her. After Hannah Montana, we kind of had like the breakthrough album where she had the song I Can't Be Tamed. And, she's like all sexy, swinging in a birdcage.
Yeah, she's going through puberty in public and doing an alright job.
She had a bunch of scandals, and then we got like the Bangers album, which had Wrecking Ball, iconic song. And it also had bangers, which I like the whole album a lot. But, that was like the hip-hop influenced, like, sexy bad girl album. Right. And then, we got kind of a country-ish album, and we got, like, a rockish album. But I think Miley is fully pop. Just a lot of different types of pop.
And it is really fun to watch somebody that you're already invested in as a fan kind of progress and turn into this whole different creature every time. I do have to say there's something I appreciate about the ones that kind of hold their line, though, that love their genre so much that they just keep doing it. Like,
who comes to mind when you say that?
I recently also kind of been doing a 90s dive because, for reasons unknown, I remembered my little small obsession with big band music.
Oh.
We had that kind of swing revival
Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Cherry Poppin' Daddies, Squirrel Nut Zippers. Squirrel Nut Zippers, I realized they're still recording. They've been recording this entire time. They've replaced members. There's only, I think, 2 original members left, but they're still doing the thing that they were obsessed with when they made their big debut, and they're still kind of going hard. Like, you can go to one of their concerts and still have a similar experience to when, you were in high school. That's also something I appreciate.
Yeah, when you said that, Offspring comes to mind.
Yes.
Offspring. Like, every Offspring album sounds exactly the same, and I'm here for it.
It puts you in that space where you're just like, yes, this is how I wanted to feel. Like,
one of my siblings texted me a while back and was like, oh, have you heard Green Day's new album? And I'm like, no. So I turn it on in the car, and after like 30 seconds, my kid goes, this sounds like every other Green Day song ever.
Yes, child.
But it's relevant, though. And I do appreciate that as well. I remember when Mumford & Sons said they're coming out with this album and it wasn't going to sound anything like them. And I was like, this sounds everything like you. But my sister did not agree. She was like, it sounds different. Like, I don't know.
I will always love having gotten to see the Diddy Bops live. I do wish I had seen their previous tour because it was a tribute tour to a friend that had passed that I saw, which is important and relevant and was beautiful. But I knew them for kind of like the happier, kickier stuff in their earlier albums, and that just wasn't what was on for the show. So I just kind of wished I'd gotten to see them twice because they're apparently not doing anything anymore. And if you're out there, you guys are amazing. You ever want to record again, you got my $1.
So after listening the other dozen times that I said I was going to, so this is part 2, guys, and we're recording this in 2 separate pieces, because I had to go re-listen to Eminem's album a few times. So here's my final conclusion on everything. Music used to be like very much a storytelling genre, and it still is. Some songs are less stories than others. But so I'm listening to the whole album and thinking of it just as this concept piece of where Eminem's like, yeah, I had this Slim Shady character and everybody liked how offensive he was. And that wouldn't be a thing now, obviously, because we live in PC culture. But then Slim Shady comes back in this concept album and he's like, you're nothing without me. Would it be funny if it was on South Park? Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's an honest conversation.
Yeah.
I got my start with something that people wouldn't have access to now. So do you ignore it? No. Do you just pretend that a thing didn't exist because it's uncomfortable? Well, that's how things happen over and over again.
Right. I'm thinking about all this, listening to the album, and I'm like, okay, maybe the reason it kind of feels uncomfortable to me to hear things we don't say anymore because we live in PC culture being said is that when I think about it, first of all, if the Slim Shady of, what was it, 98, 99, whatever, just popped up on the scene now and said the equivalent of what he said back then, I don't know how it would go.
You can't even really say that it would go badly.
I don't know if it would.
Certainty, because I don't think we're ever going to lose our fascination with, oh, you're not supposed to. That's
right.
A very reliable marketing tactic. That's a really reliable artistic tack.
Yeah.
We've always tried to push the envelope because when you're uncomfortable, you talk about it.
Right. So part of me is like, I think that even though some of the stuff is rude, like, again, what's with Chris? Why do you not like Christopher Reeves? What's the deal? My gosh.
History story.
Right. Even with that, I'm like, I actually think it would have been way worse.
Mm-hmm.
But Marshall Mathers has too much to lose.
Well, that's an interesting point, too, though. It's like you can't grab relevance with controversy in the same way now. But
Right.
you can dig up the corpse of the character that was allowed.
Yeah. Right. But, and I think that's kind of like the whole arc of his album. He's like, I needed Slim Shady. Everybody likes Slim Shady. Also, Slim Shady was like a mental coping mechanism for addiction. That's unfortunate.
That's also an honest conversation that
right.
is really appreciated.
And so now we know there are two different people. The PC culture that he brings up a few times in this arc, I'm like, yeah, that's annoying, but look at you still out here doing good things, because there's a lot of rappers on the album who are in songs with him who are like smaller Detroit and surrounding area rappers. So I don't know. This is my final ponderance. I don't really have an answer. So what in the world would be said if Slim Shady popped out right now? People would talk about it. Some people would scream about it.
But everyone would be noticing it, and that is always the point.
So if you guys have listened to The Death of Slim Shady, tell us. Let us know what you think of it. Is it that deep? Is it not that deep? Is it just an album?
It will always change.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a rating if you feel like it. We would love that.
Catch you next time.
Bye.